And good evening. Welcome to another edition of Sports Corner. My name is Ralph Williams. We're here every Tuesday night live here on YouTube and Facebook. Tonight, my very special guest is Clayton Truder, who has a book out about Atlanta sports. We're going to talk with him about that, the state of the Atlanta Falcons, and a whole lot more here tonight on Sports Corner. Later on, we're going to talk about the Steelers, their first preseason game, and everybody thinks it's the Super Bowl. So here we are, first preseason game, and everybody thinks it's the Super Bowl. But it was a great feeling to see the crowd out there cheering on Kenny Pickett, our number one draft pick. All right, Clayton, how's it going tonight? It's great to have you here, and I wanted to ask you about your book about Atlanta sports. How did that come about? I mean, what made you want to do that book?
Well, first of all, Ralph, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. It's nice here
You're
in
welcome.
Vermont this evening. The book started down as a project in graduate school. I have a PhD in history, and I was interested in writing about the history of professional sports franchise relocations and its impact on cities across North America. My advisor suggested pick one city that is emblematic of the changes you want to talk about. And I picked Atlanta because in many ways, Atlanta invents the model that so many other cities use to try to become a big league. They make significant civic investments in two stadiums, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium and the Omni Arena. Those two stadium financing deals bring four major pro sports teams to town. And many other cities end up emulating this as their way to become major league, particularly if you look in the nation's south or the nation's west. Cities like San Diego, like Tampa, like New Orleans, like Houston, like Jacksonville, like Nashville, end up following this business model, rolling out the red carpet for major pro sports leagues, wining and dining the people from those leagues, telling them we are open for business and willing to finance stadiums. That's how they too became major league. And my book talks about that experience in Atlanta in the 1960s and 1970s. The book is called Loserville: How Professional Sports Remade Atlanta and How Atlanta Remade Professional Sports. It's very different than my initial graduate student project, which was more of an academic paper. This is more telling the story in book form, and I hope everybody gets a chance to take a look at it.
And also, too, Clayton, I know you're, an Atlanta Falcons fan and everything else. Give the list or the viewers here a little bit of perspective as to what we can expect from the Falcons this year.
I expect a nice bounce back. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the quarterback situation. They brought in Marcus Mariota. They have Desmond Ridder, whom they drafted out of Cincinnati, whom I cover Cincinnati Bearcats athletics for SB Nation, so I've seen him develop over the past 4 years. I think he could possibly, if he gets to be the starter, be the rookie of the year in the NFL. He's certainly a born leader and a guy who can contribute immediately, both with his feet and also with his arm. So I expect him to lead this team onto the field. In many ways, it's a very veteran club. You have Arthur Smith. You have Arthur Smith in place as a head coach, who's certainly a run-first kind of guy from his experience in Tennessee. He certainly has experience with Mariota as well. So I expect this to be a fairly conservative team offensively that will pick their spots and find a way to move the ball. I think the Falcons could be an above 500 team in 2022. A little bit of a surprise for many people with the departure of Matt Ryan.
Yeah, what was the thought process down in Atlanta there in regards when Matt Ryan went? Did they think that Arthur Smith was crazy, or was there just some kind of were they like glad to see him go? Maybe it's a new beginning, and I know every coach wants their quarterback, so and then getting rid of Matt Ryan and starting all over again, or starting moving on to the second season. What was the thought process? What are the fans saying in Atlanta?
Well, there were very mixed views about it in Atlanta. Certainly, Matt Ryan had been a highly successful quarterback there for many, many years. But I think he'd certainly been hit a lot the last couple of years. Whether or not he was going to be a long-term quarterback at this point, I think, was also a question. I think to some extent, Arthur Smith was looking to put his signature on the franchise, and by having a quarterback who could be his guy, I think in particular with the case with Ridder, this could be the case because he's a more mobile quarterback. Arthur Smith wants to run the ball, pound the football, like he certainly did in Tennessee. And I think Matt Ryan is more of a classic drop-back passer, particularly at this point in his career, and doesn't really lend a lot of capacity on the ground. So I think in many ways it was a rebuilding of the organization around the new new regime in place, more so than it was a criticism of Ryan, who I think could well be very successful in Indianapolis. It seems like a good kind of low key setting for him in which to rebuild his career.
Clayton, you and I are both wrestling fans. You're on my wrestling show, Wrestle Talk, every now and again, and I'm going to try to have you on my TV show, which is coming up real soon. What's your thoughts right now on the state of professional wrestling?
Well, it's certainly in flux. I mean, it's tough to know what's going on with the AEW WWE battle moving forward, with the obvious transitions going on in the WWE with Vince McMahon's departure. I would say early on, I'm happy with the booking direction we've seen under the Triple H regime in the WWE, bringing in a few people who had kind of disappeared, particularly some NXT people had disappeared in the last year or two. Seeing them be a part of the new product, I think, seems like a positive step. It seemed like the same storylines were just going over and over and over and over again in the WWE in recent years. And maybe there will be a move away from kind of the groupthink, which seems to have taken over the writing direction of that organization, and a more clear vision coming into place under Triple H. I think also having a guy in a leadership position who was one of the boys in the locker room at one point is a positive thing. He will certainly be able to bring the perspective of one of the wrestlers, more so than under McMahon they were able to. Certainly McMahon had wrestled before, but his position as a wrestler was a little bit different than Triple H, who's a guy who came up in the business and developed a very strong career and was very much a self-made man as an entrepreneur in the business and also as a performer.
I wonder what that is. I got church bells ringing. Huh. I don't even know where that came from. Wow. Okay. And well, church has been closed around here for a while. Apologize for that, everybody, but I don't even know where that came from. I had a bunch of church bells ringing. Don't even know what happened. Well, anyway, one other question I wanted to ask you. We were talking off the air here before we came on. What happened to the Atlanta Thrashers? What was that all about? Ownership didn't want to take responsibility, or did the Atlanta fans just didn't embrace it? What was the story with that?
I think there's a few different moving parts there. I think ownership, as I mentioned off air, was a big part of it. Initially, they were owned by the same entity that owned WCW. They were owned by Time Warner, this massive corporate conglomerate that got put into place once Ted Turner ended up selling off his business. So you kind of had a rudderless ship there for the early years in town. I think as a result of that, it put them in a bad position moving forward. I mean, there were a core of people who were very interested in the Thrashers. They had a season ticket base of 8,000 or 9,000 people who were rabid about hockey, but it was very much a niche audience of people who were oftentimes transplants from the north who came from more hockey-centric markets who supported the team. They were unable to build a more casual fan base. I think a lot of the southern hockey teams have faced the same thing. There's obviously a lot of people for work or whatever reason have ended up moving to these southern and western markets. Whether or not you can build a broad audience beyond that hardcore base of support has proven difficult in a lot of places, especially as more and more teams are in the region. It's not a novelty having pro hockey in a southern state anymore. There are many franchises across the region. And I think the Thrashers, there were too many options at that point in terms of hockey. They had to very much rely just on Metro Atlanta for their television market, which proved to not be a particularly strong hockey television market. And they had their very core base of support. But beyond that, it didn't work very well either. In 2003, Time Warner ends up selling the team to Atlanta Spirit, which was an ownership group that involved a number of different people. They didn't do particularly well as either owners of the Hawks or the Thrashers. They ended up owning both teams. And as the fortunes of the NHL financially got a little worse in the post-lock, there was the NHL lockout of 04-05. The entire league, particularly teams that were in more tenuous financial positions, began to suffer a little bit as their television contract was beginning to wear out, and they were trying to get a bigger one with NBC. So the Atlanta Spirit Group ended up looking for a new home and found one in Winnipeg. So I think difficulty building beyond the hardcore base, a lack of on-ice success certainly, but then also a little bit of instability in the ownership groups are the major reasons I think the Thrashers failed in Atlanta. And unless you have a very particularly devoted owner in a future Atlanta NHL bid, I think it's going to be a tough NHL market moving forward, since they've had two different teams leave town now.
I forgot to ask you this earlier, Clayton. How's the book selling right now?
I think in some ways it's kind of tough to know, because on Amazon, if you appear on a show, all of a sudden you look like Tom Clancy for 10 minutes, because it'll sell a bunch of copies all at once and your Amazon score will shoot way up. Then like 2 days later, it looks like nobody's ever bought the book before. I don't have any hard figures before. I do think the book is finding an audience, though, it seems. I've been able to appear on a number of different podcasts and radio programs, and the book's been profiled in different places. So I think people are hearing about it. It's a long book, so certainly, I think some people look at it and are a bit daunted by being a 500-page book, but I think we're finding an audience for the book, and that's a great pleasure.
I see. Clayton, what is your background? I mean, where did you go to school? Where did you get into literature, writing books, and doing reports and writing and stuff like that? How did that come about for you?
Sure. I went to I grew up in Vermont. I went to the University of Vermont, just in Burlington, Vermont, not far from where I grew up. I went to graduate school at Boston College. I got my PhD in history there. And while I was there, I got interested in trying to turn the research project I was doing on franchise relocations into a book. So that got me more into a writing direction. And I wrote Loserville. Essentially, I wrote it in the very early stages of the of COVID-19, when there was the shutdowns and everything. And from there, I've moved into more freelance writing. I write for a lot of different magazines, things like the Elks Club magazine. I write for different city and state magazines. I do book reviews for American History magazine. So I write in a lot of different venues now. Usually the topics are sports related, sometimes music related, but for the most part, there's some connection to sports or history in the things I write about. So that, and I teach at Norwich University, which is a college, and a small military college in Vermont as well. So I'm a writer as well as a college instructor.
So how's the moose up there in Vermont?
I'm trying to think. I know a couple people have hit mooses before, which I guess is an unpleasant experience. I don't know that I've ever seen a moose like more closer than 100 feet away. The funny thing is, even though I grew up in Vermont, I'm a person who's always lived in towns, so I'm much more of a townie than I am like a country person. Like, I don't know thing one about being on the forest or fishing or hunting. I'm very ignorant about all those things. Like, I'm a person who's basically lived in towns my whole life, so my rural skills are very poor. When I tell people I'm from Vermont, I think they expect me to be some kind of Daniel Boone, but I'm certainly not that.
There you go. Clayton, it was great to have you on tonight. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk Thursday night on Wrestle Talk, and we're going to have a great time talking about the WWE, AEW, and all that other stuff going on. Just for a few seconds here, I hear we hear rumors about wrestling and different things that are going on. Right now, there's some talk about wrestlers coming back, leaving AEW. AEW being $50 million in a hole. They don't know what to do with their talent. Is it becoming another WCW?
It could well be. I mean, I think in many ways it's a similar business model with Tony Khan being in place of Ted Turner. I think the question of how much money you want to end up losing on this venture, I think ends up being the story of AEW in many respects. These are incredibly difficult situations financially to invest in, and you end up in an arms race with this big publicly traded company, WWE. WWE also comes in with a lot more expertise about this business, and I think in the long run that's something WCW faced, that they may have been part of a much bigger corporate entity, but that was the only business WWE did, and so they had a lot more experience, a lot more institutional memory, even if things weren't going well for that 83-week stretch when WCW was ahead on Monday nights. The WWE, I think, had a better architecture they were able to build around than what WCW had, whose I guess house seemed to have a much less sturdy foundation in the long run.
Tell me, What's the rest of the division where the Atlanta Falcons are placed at, in the NFC South? What's the rest of the division looking like? You think they can compete this year?
I think they can be somewhat competitive. I mean, it's a tough division. The Saints are probably going to be a pretty good team. I mean, certainly Tampa Bay is a fantastic club. It's a tough division in which to compete. I think one would tend to think Carolina and Atlanta are the bottom feeders in that division. I think Carolina's got a tough situation at quarterback. I mean, you've got Baker Mayfield basically coming in off the street. Who knows what he's going to end up being like in that situation? Sam Darnold is a guy who at 25 seems like his career has already kind of turned for the worse. So I think they have a lot of instability at quarterback. Whereas I think in a strange way, Desmond Ridder, because he's been a starting quarterback for such a long time coming out of Cincinnati, brings almost like a veteran's confidence to the position. And I hope he ends up getting the starting job in Atlanta. I think it'll be a great boon for their success, particularly if they take this run first offense, bend but don't break defense approach that I expect Arthur Blank to take. Arthur Smith to take over the course of the 2022 season. So I think the Falcons could certainly be in contention for a wild card bid.
Yeah, no pun intended, because I have a show called The Way I See It. But the way I see it here is, if you have a good running game, the quarterback only has to manage the game. I mean, and a
Yes.
good defense. The quarterback doesn't have to do anything fancy. Marcus Mariota is not a fancy kind of a quarterback, but he's a good backup. He's played,
Yeah.
he's been a starter. And Desmond Ridder, he looked good at Cincinnati. I was surprised he slipped as far down as he did. I
Yeah.
actually thought he was going to go up there with Kenny Pickett, and it didn't turn out that way. I watched Ridder in the Senior Bowl. I mean, he looked great, and it just, and I've seen him in the one game against Alabama for, to go for the championship game. And I mean, it was just he had a great time there at Cincinnati. And I just thought he would have, but I'm glad that Atlanta has him, and Arthur Smith has something he can work with at least a little bit. I think Carolina. I think Matt Rule's walking on eggshells this year. He's got Baker Mayfield down there. Now I think he's changing up his mind. First, he said he wants to start Sam Darnold at the beginning of the year, and now he's talking about having a competition down there between him and Baker Mayfield, because I think he knows he has egg on his face because he got Baker Mayfield down there now. And I think he just doesn't know what to do with either one of them. And we're going to find out what happens with Carolina, and all that. And then Tampa Bay is going to be Tampa Bay. And, they have a new coach this year, well, he's not new, but I mean, Todd Bowles, he's been around, but he's
Mhm.
going to be their he's their new head coach this year. And we're going to see what Tom Brady has left in the tank. And we'll see what Tampa does, and the rest of that division down there as well. So I think it's going to be competitive, like you said.
It'll be interesting to see how Cordell Patterson ends up getting used this year. I certainly showed a lot of versatility last year for the Falcons. I would say also another thing is bringing in Drake London in the draft, who Terry Fontenot picked number 8 overall. I think will be an excellent, very steady target for Ridder or Mariota or whoever ends up with the job. But I think it seems like the Falcons have built up a nice cadre of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and I expect them to make use of it this season.
All right, Clayton. Once again, I'm sorry. I wanted to talk a little extra here, and I had anyway. Thanks for being on the program tonight, and I'll talk with you Thursday night on Wrestle Talk. Clayton Truder, author of the book, about Atlanta sports. Tell everybody how they can get your book, Clayton.
Great. My book is called Loserville: How Professional Sports Remade Atlanta and How Atlanta Remade Professional Sports. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all your well-known online book retailers. Should be in a lot of bookstores too. If you can't find it in the bookstore, there are many ways to get it online as well. You can also get it directly from the publisher, the University of Nebraska Press. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Clayton Truder, ClaytonTrutor. I've got a website, ClaytonTruder.com, which profiles a lot of the different articles I publish in different places too. It's been such a pleasure to be on with you, Ralph, and I'm looking forward to talking some wrestling on Thursday night.
Oh yeah, you know it. We're the best in the business, and it's getting better and better. I can't wait till Thursday night. I'll talk with you Thursday night. Once again, Clayton Truder, thank you for being on the program. It was great having you on. So have a great one, and I'll talk with you Thursday night.
I rarely get that kind of an ovation. Thank you, my friend. Have a nice evening.
All right, that was Clayton Schroeder from Atlanta. He wrote a book on Atlanta sports. It was great to have him on the program tonight. I am Ralph Williams. This is Sports Corner, and we welcome you here on Sports Corner every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. And tonight we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, the first preseason game is here, and it's gone. All right. Now, everybody's getting all excited about Kenny Pickett. There was this big thing about the Pitt being there and all this and all that about Kenny Pickett. And that was it. It was all about Kenny Pickett. Okay. So Kenny Pickett gets out there and he gets this big round of applause, and everybody acts like the Steelers just won the Super Bowl. Folks, let me tell you something. And this is my rant tonight. This is the first game of the preseason. All right. That is where we are right now. Okay. When we get to the end of the preseason and we all look at this stuff and dissect it, because we only have 2 more games in the preseason this year. It's only 3 games and a 17-game season. Okay. And I was on a show yesterday. I was on Claudio Rosano's show on his website. You can listen to that on Friday. Or go to claudiorosano.com. And I was on his show with Smokin' Jim Frazier, who, as you know, is my co-host. He's on Wrestle Talk with me and on the TV version of Sports Corner with me as well. And we talked about the Steelers. All right. I think the preseason game, and I said this again on the show, that I think the Steelers played an average game. Okay. There were some, kinks in the armor that need to be fixed. They need to be dented out. The dents need to be fixed. And the fixing part right here is the run defense. It was terrible. Okay. The run defense was horrible. And Devin Bush still looks like a deer in the headlights anymore. He's terrible. He was splitting time with Robert Spillane. I see Robert Spillane making this team. I do not see Devin Bush making the team just in the first game. Let's see what he does in the next 2 games. This Saturday they play Jacksonville, and then on the 28th they will be in. On the 28th they're going to be in or here at Heinz Field. It's a Sunday game, a Sunday exhibition game. And the NFL's been tinkering with these preseason games, tinkering with the draft, tinkering with the regular season. They've been doing nothing but tinkering. Okay. And it's been going on for a while now, and it's going to continue. All right. But what I saw in the preseason game was encouraging. There's going to be some roster spots that are going to be tough for the Steelers coaching staff to make a decision. All right. Mike Tomlin had to cut some players today, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay. And we'll go over the schedule. We'll go over the teams. All right. I'm trying to get reporters on from every team that the Steelers are playing this year to talk about what their team is up to, so that you can get an idea of what the Steelers are going to be up against this year. All right. I've already had the Jets, New England, Atlanta. We just had on with Clayton Schroeder tonight. Okay. I've talked with Peter Blake about Tampa, Leo Haggerty. Okay. All right. I bring these guys on, like I explained to Mike Westhoff a few weeks back. I bring these guys on, and I bring these reporters on to talk, to give you some insight as to what the Steelers are in for with these teams this year. All right. And all right, we'll get started here. All right, with the regular season schedule. They're at Cincinnati, and that is on September 11th, which, of course, as you know, is 9/11. All right. And then on September 18th, they're at home against New England. They play the Patriots. That could be New England wasn't as good as they were with Tom Brady, but they went to the playoffs last year, okay, with a young quarterback in Mac Jones. All right. So when you sit there and you tell me, oh, well, New England's nowhere near as good as they used to, Steelers should beat them. No. Don't take it. As long as Bill Belichick is the coach of the Patriots, you never ever think that the Patriots are what they call a second-class team. They're always going to be good when Bill Belichick is their coach. All right. And just remember that he might be old. He's been around a long time. And I know what you're saying to me. Well, Ralph, you don't get it. He is, that's the way it is. No, it's not. Okay. Bill Belichick has a high standard. All right. He's been around a long time. His teams have won Super Bowls. Comment section wide open. I'm Ralph Williams. This is Sports Corner. If you're live, first time watcher tonight, we're live on YouTube and Facebook. Also, later on, I'm going to come up, or I'll let you know in regards to my other shows that I have going on and where they are and how you can access them as well. All right, next, the Steelers are September 22nd. They're at Cleveland. This is going to be one of the two they play against Cleveland this year. This will be the game without Deshaun Watson. Now, that's depending on if this appeal goes through. Now, the NFL appealed that judge's decision about Deshaun Watson. I'm not sold on the Cleveland Browns anyway. I think Kevin Stefanski, I think is, I think he's an overrated coach. I think Cleveland's going to fall. And, they should have never got rid of Baker Mayfield. And they traded all this stuff for a guy in Deshaun Watson who has caused some of the problems that he has caused. And who knows, maybe he'll cause more. He's a young kid. Maybe he will cause more. All right. But all I'm saying is that I don't think Cleveland's going to be that good this year. All right. And I think they're going to fall just like they do every other time. At Buffalo. Now, that's going to be a tough game. That's always we beat Buffalo last year, but that was last year. All right. And believe me, Tom McDermott's going to come up with something he's going to come up with something that's going to be able to shut the Steelers down. So the Steelers need to really beware. All right. And, a lot of people are going round and round about how they think the Steelers are going to be great this year. They're going to have a good defense. The question is Matt Canada's offense going to be sufficient enough to run for the quarterback to run the offense to put points on the board and score points? Okay. But the defense as well can create points. All right. The defense not only can create points by turnovers, okay, interceptions, blocking the ball, knocking the ball down off the defensive line. All right. That is what the Steelers have to focus on more. They continue to just tackle the player. They continue to, have these issues with with the running game and everything else as it comes to that. Okay. But that's where we are with the Steelers right now. One preseason game, and everybody thinks it's the Super Bowl. Everybody's so happy that the Steelers are back in play. I'm happy too. I'm glad football's back. I'm glad the Steelers are back. I'm glad Pitt's getting ready to start their season. Okay? But what I'm not happy about is the way everybody's making this big issue about one preseason game. All right, let's find out what they're made of. All right, and we're going to. We're going to find out what Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Kenny Pickett are made of. All right? All right, next. These are October 2nd, which is the day after my birthday. We play the New York Jets. Okay? So here we are. We play the New York Jets. It's a 1 o'clock home game. Robert Saleh's second year. Mike Westhoff told me 2 weeks ago that he was at some practices for the Jets, and the Jets have organized practices. That Robert Saleh is an organized guy. He's got the right assistants in place to be an organized guy. But now he has a problem. He doesn't have a quarterback. And he's going to need one. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is this, and that is that the Jets could be a trap game. All right? If I'm the Steelers at all this season, I would take no team lightly because they may not be that good themselves. All right? Special teams. I said this on Claudio's show yesterday. All right? And it's this, and that is this. Okay? All right? Special teams has to do something to help with this. They got to get us good field position. They got to start doing fake punts, fake kicks. All right? They got to start doing onside kicks. Keep people like Brady and them off the field. Okay? Keep them off the field as much as you can. That's less you have to worry about them. You might even be able to score some points. All right. One of the worst things that any team can do is basically do something like a gadget play, a fake kick or a fake punt or whatever. Don't get the first down. Don't get the or score a touchdown. Don't do any of that. Get nothing out of it. It's a waste of play when you don't get anything out of it. All right. But there's nothing with the special teams other than just return game. All right. You have a weapon in Presley Harvin and you don't use them. All right. I don't know what Danny Smith is thinking of. And I don't know if Danny Smith, the special teams coach, has ever thought of anything like that. Because the one time that we did decide to do a fake kick, we used our kicker and he got hurt. We just signed him to a new contract. Last thing we need is for him to be hurt. Think about that. All right. Let's see here. Where are we at? Okay, at Buffalo. I already talked about Buffalo. That was the game after the Jets. That's the October 9th. October 16th, we are home against Tampa Bay. The return of Tom Brady to the Pittsburgh area. He was here last year for preseason. Bruce Arians was the coach. Todd Bowles was the coach this year. Brady said he wasn't coming back unless there was a different coach. All right. But you know something, Tom Brady, you work for me. If I'm paying you, you work for me. I don't care who you are. Okay. If you don't like who the coach is, you can go. We'll void your contract. Goodbye. Okay. But a lot of people in this world today, they don't see it that way. All right. Comments welcome in the comments section as well. Every Tuesday night, we're here at 8 p.m. Coming up next Wednesday, August 24th, 8 o'clock start time. Steelers special, Sports Corner special edition, and I have a nice panel coming. Okay? I have a panel. Luther Dupree, Claudio Rosano, Smoke and Jim Frazier, possibility of Al Levine, the talking machine, and I'm working on getting a national person on here as well. And we're going to talk about the start of the Steelers season. We're going to talk about what the Steelers can or are they going to do, what can they do, what kind of improvements they can make when training camp ends and the preseason ends. Players will be cut from different teams. All right. All right, next, at Miami. Now, Miami has a new coach. All right. Let's see what Tua can do with this new coach. He's a quarterback offensive specialist. Okay. Stephen Ross is in trouble this year. He's not allowed to be involved with the team for some games. He was suspended for inappropriate actions with, involving his team. All right. Comment section wide open. So come on and get your comments in tonight right here on Sports Corner. I'm Ralph Williams. We're here every Tuesday night, 8 p.m., live on YouTube and Facebook. Next, at Philly. We haven't been to Philly in a few years, okay? Nick Sirianni's their coach, okay? They were in the playoffs last year. Jalen Hurts is their starting quarterback, more or less. I'm working on getting somebody from Philly on here in the next week or two, okay? All right? And also stay tuned on my Facebook page and Twitter and Wimkin accounts for announcements and regarding special shows of Sports Corner. Which means it won't just be on Tuesday. It'll be on any time. It could be on any time. So what you need to do is you need to subscribe to YouTube, to my YouTube page. And then you also need to like my Facebook page and follow me on Facebook as well. Because that way you can get all the announcements of when all my shows are going to be on. All right. Next, Cincinnati at home. Now, we played the Bengals away, and now we're going to play them at home. Bengals, we'll see. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They creeped up in there and surprised everybody. Nobody thought Cincinnati was that good of a team. Nobody thought Cincinnati would go to the Super Bowl. Not even close. All right. There's a lot of people right now that had to eat it. All right. And the reason they had to eat it was because nobody thought Cincinnati was going to the Super Bowl. I didn't. Okay. All right. I didn't think anybody in our division was going to the Super Bowl. That's how bad it looked last year. And I'm surprised with what record the Steelers had last year based on their inadequate offensive line. But for as poor as that offensive line played, we still squeezed out a winning record. Okay, next, New Orleans. New Orleans has a new coach, Dennis Allen. They have a lot of talent there. Jameson Winston's coming back. Okay, we're going to find out what they do down there. All right. Okay, Dennis Allen, he is a defensive guru. He's a great defensive coordinator. Horrible head coach. He was the coach at the Raiders. Bad head coach. All right, fired him after I think a couple seasons, maybe even one. Okay, but of course, working for the Davis family down there with the Raiders is tough anyway. Noel was checked in. Hello, Noel. Thank you for watching the show. All right, Cincinnati at home on November 20th, right after the New Orleans game. And we're going to find out what Cincinnati's made of in week 1. All right, next, we're at Indianapolis. Now, Indianapolis has Matt Ryan, a quarterback this year. Okay? Frank Reich, the head coach, is determined to win this year. He's been winning, but he's not making the playoffs. He's had some different things going on, I don't think DeMarcus Russell's going to do too much of anything because from the story I heard, he's busting tables. So, there you are. All right, anyway, that's the story with the Colts. Atlanta, Clayton Schroeder was just on. He talked about Atlanta, and I'm not going to go no further with Atlanta. Baltimore got beefier this year, and I've said this many times. Baltimore went out and they got drafted Travis Jones from UConn, who I thought the Steelers should have looked at. Nose tackle. They got the Daniel Falala on offensive line who can do multiple things, run with the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball, hold for the kicker and throw it and do fake kicks. All right. John Harbaugh is once again determined to win. They have a Lamar Jackson drama situation going on down there. But we'll see what Baltimore does. I know what Baltimore's going to do. They're going to lay an egg like they do every year. There you are with that one. All right, next, at Carolina. Matt Rule's on eggshells. I discussed that earlier tonight here with Clayton on the program. I've said this many times. I think he has to win this year. He's been here a good 2-3 years, but that's what's going on with Carolina. I don't see them doing anything. Matt Rule has only won no more than 5 games in the seasons he's been with Carolina. And he lost a couple coaches. He lost Pat Meyer, his offensive line coach, who was down with the Steelers. And he also lost his offensive coordinator as well. So what I'm saying to you is Matt Rule, he's up, got to be up to something this year because I don't see Carolina doing too much of anything. All right, next. Las Vegas Raiders. We play them at home. New coach. All right. And we all know who their coach is. The former New England offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniel, is their head coach. Terrible head coach in Denver. All right. Brought in Paxton Lynch. Thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he wasn't. Okay. All right. So here we are with, another second go-round for Josh McDaniel. And that's just like Todd Bowles down in Tampa Bay. This is his second go-round. Mike McCarthy down in Dallas, it's his second go-round in coaching. Coached Green Bay Packers for a lot of years. Needed to change the pace, change the atmosphere. He's getting it all right. Jerry Jones is sticking it to him. All right. At Baltimore on January 1st, on New Year's Day at Baltimore. Anytime we play any of the teams in our division, 98% of the time they're dog fights. And the reason I say that is because that is what is going on, in this division. That's how competitive it is. I don't care how sad these teams are. The Steelers always manage to get into dog fights with all 3 of these teams in the division. And then last but not least at home against Cleveland. So, it's an interesting year this year for the Steelers as far as their schedule goes. Steeler news before we go into other sports. They cut Ulysses Gilbert, linebacker, this week. I'm glad. He was horrible. He was a bum. He really didn't do too much. He got cut. They cut wide receiver Javon McKinley, signed wide receiver Christian Blade, and then also they signed second-year defensive lineman Hammaker Rashid. They signed him as well, and he was waived by the Jets, so they brought him in. And the injury front, the Steelers are short at linebacker again. They cut Tazir Skipper because he was hurt, and then they signed linebacker James Valiant. Now, this James Valiant, he's played for several teams. All right, so he's been around. Tazar Skipper, this is his third attempt at the Steelers, and he's been cut for the third time. Talks are with Detroit. Now, I'm hearing rumors now. This is not an exact fact. There are rumors now that the Detroit Lions are interested in Mason Rudolph. Why? Because if you watch on the NFL Network, if you watch this past Detroit Lions preseason game, you will see why Detroit needs a backup quarterback to Jared Goff. And I'll tell you why. Okay? Because their backups stink, and Dan Campbell was so frustrated, he didn't even know what to say. He was so angry because of the bad play of his backup quarterbacks, who are experienced at Boilers or whatever his name is. He's been around a long time. There's been a few guys that have been around a long time that have been on that team as backups. And it's terrible. So, I mean, so we'll see what happens. There's rumors circulating. By the end of the week, it could happen. Mason Rudolph could be a Detroit Lion. Let them pick up his $5 million salary, and we'll take it and go sign some other players with it as well. That could happen. I don't know. Maybe the Steelers might play caution. And if I am the Steelers, I would play caution to the wind. I would have Mason Rudolph be here as a backup. Let Kenny Pickett grow into the position. Let him grow into the position here in the NFL. And then bring him in like what happened to Ben. Okay? Who knows? Trubisky and Rudolph could get hurt, and then Pickett would have to play. Then we could actually see what Kenny Pickett is made of. All right? But that's the story with that there. Going on with Mason Rudolph. All right. Anthony Miller is out for the season. He was supposed to be a vital part of the receiving corps. Played with Mitch Trubisky in Chicago. Steelers signed him specifically for that reason. Not a bad wide receiver. Well, guess what? He's out for the year with some kind of a foot or ankle injury of some kind. Vance Joseph the same way. Tough break for him. He played for the Bengals, got hurt a couple years ago with us. And then, so tough break for him. Sad to hear that that's the situation with him. And the Steelers today claimed center Ryan McCallum from Detroit. He was the center. And they waived center Nate Gilliam. So that's the Steeler news today. Also, we're going to talk about the AFC North a little bit. Cleveland Brown Deshaun Watson agreed to accept and pay a $5 million fine for his nonsense. And that's an interesting scenario there. I was surprised that happened, but they agreed, they have to pay. It's part of a fine. The dictator, Roger Goodell, might, but I mean, I want to give Roger Goodell credit. They are appealing the situation with this judge, trying to get this Deshaun Watson suspension for 1 year. I'd like to see that happen because I would like to see more egg on Cleveland's face. So that's exactly what I want to see there. And it could happen. You never know as well. All right. They're looking to trade for Browns or possibility of trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know what San Fran's going to do with Garoppolo. There's been many, many rumors and stories. There were stories he was coming to Pittsburgh. There were stories that this, that, and whatever. San Francisco gets a good deal. Garoppolo's gone. They got Trey Lance down there as well. Cincinnati Bengals strike a deal to rename their stadium. You ready for this? Are you ready for this? All right, here it is. It is going to be called Waycor Field. That's exactly what it's going to be called. And Canis Cocktail will be naming it. Will have gate rights. Okay. And I told you earlier about the Baltimore Ravens are having some drama issues with Lamar Jackson. He wants a little more money for his contract. It's due up soon. And, he's crying wolf like everybody else. just like the Steelers overpaid for Deontay Johnson, which I think was a stupid thing to do. I think they should have let him right out of his contract this year. Okay. All right. Give him the 1 year left he got on it, and then give him the franchise tag and let him earn that $18 million or whatever he's going to get every year. Let him earn it. Instead, we just hand it out to him. Okay. And now, if this is going to be what I call the Omar Khan regime, then we're in trouble. All right. Is that going to be the Omar Khan regime? That's scary. Okay. That we just hand out contracts. All right. Deontay Johnson's being sued by some woman for some inappropriate activity. His lawyer came on and said that that's false, and she's a gold digger. All right. So now we have drama involved with Deontay Johnson. We give him big money. He drops the ball all the time and everything else. All right. And that's exactly the situation. Okay. It's a scary one because the way I see this, no pun intended. Okay. All right. That's what we're looking at right now. All right. Well, the attorney says, well, this lady, is a gold digger. She's just looking for money. Well, you know what? Isn't everybody? Okay. Oh, she just picked Deontay Johnson right out of a hat. Okay. She couldn't get nothing from Deshaun Watson, this lady. So now all of a sudden she decides, you know what she's going to do? She's going to go after Deontay Johnson next. Okay. All right. Let's talk more NFL here. Tom Brady has taken the summer practices off for personal reasons. I believe most of us know what the story is with this, because if you don't, all right, then I don't know what rock you're living under, because supposedly he is having some domestic problems. Him and his wife are getting a divorce, and he wants to spend the rest of, I guess, this month trying to fix it. So I don't know if it's fixable. Could happen. They could end up being in a divorce. And, so we'll see what goes on with Tom Brady with that. But that's the story there with him. Also, Minnesota sent Kirk Cousins home due to an illness. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. He just signed a big money contract. So anyway, Carolina offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo says Baker Mayfield can run this offense. Ben McAdoo is a good offensive mind. He's a good quarterbacks coach. Became the head coach at the New York Giants. Didn't do well there. He's a good offense. I'm glad that Matt Rule brought him in. Let's see what happens. But between him and Matt Rule, they're going to really, have some issues with the drama. Yeah. There could be some big time drama there because you have two guys who cause drama. I mean, Matt Rule's not doing good down in Carolina, and he's not, coaches can't get along with him. And two hardheads like him and McAdoo, I see them, it's going to be a real bad situation down there anyway. So anyway, in the Pirate game at PNC Park here, the Red Sox 5, Pirates nothing. What else? Right? Mitch Keller's pitching. That's why. I'm not going to talk too much about the Pirates tonight because we don't have too much time. But I'm not going to talk about them too much at all tonight, other than the fact that Omar Marino auctioned off his World Series ring for a cause. But also, I was told that the reason he auctioned it off was because he's having some financial issues as well. It's sad to hear that. Omar Marino was a great player back in the 70s in a World Series team and everything else. All right, speaking of Carolina here, owner Dave Tepper from Carolina, all right, has to pay over $82 million to a failed practice back to the county for the practice facility, a failed practice facility that they tried to build, okay? And they didn't build it, and they took $82.5 million from the county or the state or whatever, the funding that they got for it, public money that they had received for it. And then what had happened was they didn't seem to, now they got to pay it back. They got caught, and so they're paying it back. All right, speaking of New England, running back James White, three-time Super Bowl champion, has retired. All right, well, good for James White. I'm happy for him. A lot of these players now, they're some of them, and I think most of them are now starting to really learn about spending money, because a lot of them are retiring early. They're banking their money. They're retiring early. They're getting out while the getting's good before they get beat up and their body gets torn to shreds. They're playing 4, 5, 6, 8 years. Look at Heath Miller, tight end for the Steelers. He only played 8 seasons. Okay, but he got out when he needed to. All right. And there's a lot of players that do that. Look at what happened to David DeCastro for the Steelers. All right. Sad, but he had to get a third ankle surgery and didn't want to do that. Didn't want to put his body through that anymore. All right. When you end up having too many surgeries, and, if you take a look at some things, watch the movie Concussion with Will Smith. That was about Mike Webster, Terry Long, and all these guys that had these concussion syndromes. Terry Long, he killed himself. He drank antifreeze. Okay. Justin Stralls killed himself. That's what the cause of death was. Okay. They believe he killed himself. He was having issues from too many hits to the head, concussion. Okay. Mike Webster. All right. You see what I mean? So I think a lot of these players now, all right, are just getting out while they can and doing other things, acting, boxing. Look at Le'Veon Bell. Look at Adrian Peterson. They're getting out. They got out of football, but Le'Veon Bell, and I know some people who love Le'Veon Bell, thought the Steelers did him wrong, thought they should have paid him. Well, you know what, Le'Veon? You're unemployed right now. No team signs you because no team doesn't want to listen to that. Okay? He was with Kansas City. All right? He was with Baltimore for a little while, and he was with the Jets right after he left the Steelers. Even Antonio Brown even admitted he was sorry that he did what he did to the Steelers. The best years of his life. All right? That's what Antonio Brown says. But, of course, who knows about Antonio Brown? You know how that is. All right? All right, anyway, Denver Broncos have hired a new president. His name is Damani Leach, as you well know. One of the Walton family from the Walmart chain bought them, and is now the new owners. Green Bay Packers signed new kicker Kamiz Ahmed. And now you know who Kamiz Ahmed is? He's the one that broke the USFL record, kicked a 61-yard field goal. But he's also the one who missed the most extra points and most field goals. And he played for the Maulers. And you know where that went. Maulers won one game this year. We'll talk about the Maulers when the Maulers need to be talked about. That's it. All right, college football. NBC has announced that former NFL coach and offensive coordinator of the New York Giants, Jason Garrett, has a new job. He is going to be a college analyst. He was a analyst for the USFL this year. He was on some of the games. And, now he is starting to master his craft a little bit, and he's moved up in the world. And there we are. He's moving up. And that is our other sports news for tonight. Comments section wide open tonight if you're interested. We have the usual cast of characters here with their some of their comments and some of the same questions every week. So, but that's that. That's the life of being a talk show host and a podcast host. I said this about a week or two ago. Why is it that everybody seems to pick on me? Why is it that they're, or are you jealous of me? Is that what it is? That you have to come on here and do this? Is your life so boring that you have to continually come on here and say what you say on the comments section, that I'm not going to tell you out there, the viewing audience, as to what is said here? Okay, with some of this stuff. All right. You don't like what I say, then that's too bad. Okay. You have a right to express your opinion, but I'm not going to put it over the air. Okay. Express it on your own time, on your own Facebook page or Wimkin page or whatever page. Okay. I feel bad for a fellow media colleague of mine who's on Wimkin. 2 of them. They can't put anything over Wimkin. Their live stream's been shut down. Too bad. And one of them didn't return my phone calls and my email for an interview, and I could care less what happens to her. And she knows who she is. Okay? It's that simple. It's not hard. Return my emails, return my phone calls. What's so hard about that? To take 2 seconds to push a couple buttons. Oh, you'll push them to make a phone call and go boo, 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 boo. You'll make phone calls and shout and scream and cuss the F-bomb, but you won't return my emails and my phone calls. Okay? Yeah. Isn't that amazing? All right, some announcements here. Tomorrow night, 10:30. 10:30 tomorrow night on the Sports Web show with Peter Blake live on YouTube. Now, Peter Blake starts his show off. He talks mostly Tampa sports because he's a news reporter for a Tampa TV station down there, and he also has his own podcast called the Sports Web. Well, I will be on his podcast tomorrow night and every Wednesday night at 10:30 p.m. with Mark Mancini from Los Angeles, and we're going to talk about wrestling. It's called Turnbuckle Talk tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. All right, we'll be on. And Thursday at 6 p.m., I'm going to be on a show from Philadelphia called Liberty Bell Smack. I'm going to be a guest on there. Marianne Costello, Mark Mancini, Sal Saratello. Okay. And so therefore, I will be a guest on that show as well. And that is at 6 p.m. It's live on Facebook on Liberty Bell Smack, their Facebook page, and you can see it live Thursday at 6 p.m. Then Thursday at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Thursday. Every Thursday, Blog Talk Radio, Wrestle Talk with myself, Ralph Williams, and Mark Mancini. This week, Clayton Truder will be on. He was on my show earlier tonight. He's going to be on to talk wrestling with us. He's on every now and again. He's a contributor to the show. Smoking Jim Frazier, myself, Clayton Truder, and Mark Mancini, all on Wrestle Talk. 347-205-9631 is the number to call in order to listen to the show. And also every Saturday, 5 p.m., PCTV, Channel 21, Comcast 47, Verizon Cable in Allegheny County. Outside of Allegheny County, PCTV's Facebook page, you can catch my TV version of Sports Corner with myself and Smoking Jim Frazier. And that is on every Saturday at 5 p.m. And also don't forget to listen to my colleagues' shows as well, Luther Dupree, Claudia Rosano, Smoking Jim Frazier. 4 p.m. They usually on Saturday, somewhere between 4 and 7. Usually 6 p.m. every Saturday is Steel City Sports World. Boxing Authorities comes on either at 4 or at 7 on Saturday. Check the local listings for PCTV. You can also catch their archive versions of the Boxing Authorities on PCTV's Facebook page and on Fight TV, FITE TV, and on the WBO boxing channel as well. Those guys are doing well with their boxing show. I hope to do as well with my wrestling. I let them handle boxing. I handle wrestling. And that's how that works out for us. So anyway, don't forget also 6 p.m. on Saturday is Steel City Sports World, Luther Dupree, Smoking Jim Frazier, Claudio Rosano. All right, I will see you next week for Sports Corner. And don't forget, not only do we have Sports Corner here on Tuesday night at 8 p.m., but we also have a Sports Corner special. It's going to be a Steelers special. We're going to talk about the Steelers. I'm going to have panelists on that'll be talking on there with me, and you're going to find out who they are. Actually, I'll tell you who a few of them are: Claudia Rosano, Smoking Jim Frazier, and Luther Dupree. And possibility of Al Levine, the talking machine from Bethel Park TV also. All right, have a great night. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week, and be safe.